May your week be full of insight and purpose. And I just want to start by saying, may a divine blessing rest over your day and your entire week. So to jump right in, have you ever noticed this quirky, honestly kind of embarrassing flaw in human nature?
Oh, I think I know where you're going with this.
Right, like when our backs are against the wall, the bank account is completely empty, or we get a terrifying medical diagnosis, we're remarkably quick to look up. We realize exactly how small we are, and we desperately ask for help. But the second the pressure is off.
Yeah, we suffer from this instant, bizarre amnesia.
Exactly. The moment you cross that finish line or hit a major sales target or finally close on the house, suddenly you're like, I am a self-made genius who manipulated the universe to my advantage.
It really is a profound psychological whiplash. I mean, we have this astonishing capacity to rewrite our own history based entirely on our current comfort level.
So true.
We pivot from, I absolutely cannot survive this hour without intervention, to look at this magnificent empire I built entirely with my own two hands. And we do it in record time.
And that exact pivot is the focus of today's deep dive. We're unpacking an ancient but incredibly incisive psychological blueprint. And it's found in chapter 8 of the book of Deuteronomy.
It's such a fascinating chapter.
It really is. We have a couple of heavy-hitting scholarly sources guiding our analysis today, the Holman Study Bible and the NAA Study Bible. And our mission is to explore what this text observes about human memory, the radical contrast between deprivation and abundance, and, well, the deeply hidden dangers of success.
Deuteronomy 8 feels like a document written yesterday because it targets a fundamental mechanism of the human ego.
Yeah.
The study notes from both the Holman and the NAA Bibles are excellent here because they don't just treat this as some ancient historical account. They actually frame it as a timeless psychological warning about the nature of prosperity.
Well, to truly grasp the stakes, you have to understand the sheer extremity of the environment these people were dealing with. I mean, imagine wandering in a harsh, unforgiving desert wasteland for 40 straight years.
40 years! Just think about the toll that takes.
Right. You and your entire community are relying on daily, inexplicable miracles just to survive another 24 hours. And then, abruptly, you are handed the keys to an absolute paradise. So what are the psychological rules of engagement when your reality shifts that drastically?
Well, the first crucial insight from the text is redefining what that desert actually was. Because the 40 years wandering in the wilderness, it wasn't just a terribly long, poorly planned commute to a better location.
Right, it wasn't just getting lost.
No, exactly. The desert was a highly controlled, intensive classroom. The environment was specifically engineered to test the internal posture or, the heart of the people.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the sources highlight the mechanics of that classroom by focusing on the physical miracles.
Yeah.
We aren't just talking about occasionally stumbling upon a hidden oasis.
Oh, not at all. These are bizarre suspensions of the natural order.
Yeah, the text points out that for 4 decades, the clothes on the people's backs did not wear out, and their feet did not swell despite constant walking. But the Holman Study Bible notes add a layer of complexity here.
They do, yeah.
They point out this period was partly a punishment, like a direct consequence for their previous reluctance to enter the land. But more importantly, it was a time designed to humble and test them to see if they would keep the commandments. But I need to push back on that framing a little bit.
Okay, go for it.
If we compare the wilderness to an intense, forced survival boot camp, I understand the humbling aspect, but if this was primarily a punitive sentence, how do we reconcile that with the constant, deeply intimate care they received?
That is the big question.
Right, like clothes magically not wearing out does not sound like the standard operating procedure for a prison sentence.
No, it really doesn't. And you're hitting on the exact tension the narrative demands we confront. The NAA Study Bible notes actually provide a brilliant synthesis for this contradiction.
Oh, really? How so?
They explain that this specific discipline wasn't merely punitive. It wasn't some judge indiscriminately handing down a harsh, unfeeling sentence. The discipline was paternal.
Oh, interesting, like a father.
Exactly. The text explicitly uses the analogy of a father disciplining a son. The overarching goal was to teach them a vital existential dependence. It wasn't suffering for the sake of suffering.
Okay, so it was an act of parental framing to shape their character before they were handed immense power.
Spot on.
But wait, paternal discipline usually implies teaching a child to stand on their own 2 feet, right? You discipline a teenager so they can eventually move out and be independent.
That's how we tend to think of it today, yeah.
So this discipline seems to be teaching them the exact opposite. that they absolutely cannot stand on their own. How does that align with a fatherly approach?
Because in this specific theological framework, true maturity isn't utter independence from the Creator. It's actually the profound recognition of one's continuous reliance on the Creator. God was stripping away their illusion of self-sufficiency.
Wow. Okay, that makes sense.
And the ultimate pedagogical tool for this lesson was the daily provision of manna. The NWA source offers a fascinating linguistic note here. Manna literally translates to the question, what is this?
Wait, really? So they are literally waking up every morning, gathering their sustenance, and the very name of the food is a perpetual question mark.
Yes, they are eating a mystery.
That is wild.
They couldn't farm it. They couldn't trade for it. They couldn't selectively breed it for a better yield. They possessed absolutely zero agency over their own food supply.
So by feeding them this unknown substance, the environment forced them to internalize a fundamental mechanism of reality.
Which is that humanity doesn't just survive on bread, meaning the material resources we can manipulate and control, but we survive on every word, every command that proceeds from God.
Oh, that connects perfectly to Jesus in the wilderness centuries later. When he is fasting and tempted by the devil to turn stones into bread, he quotes this exact Deuteronomic law.
He really does. He is effectively weaponizing this ancient lesson from the desert against the temptation of self-reliance.
He's proving that true survival requires prioritizing divine dependence over immediate physical gratification.
It's a masterful connection, and it validates the universal, enduring nature of the wilderness test. The desert forcefully aligns human perception with reality, showing that you are not the author of your own survival.
But that daily dependence on manna presents a fascinating problem once the environment changes, because they don't stay in the desert forever.
Right, the transition is coming.
What happens to a mind trained on daily unexplainable miracles when it is suddenly dropped into a lush, utopian landscape? The sources describe the destination as a place of staggering abundance.
It's incredible.
Brooks, deep springs, valleys, and hills. It is overflowing with wheat, barley, vines, fig trees, pomegranates, olive oil, and honey.
And it goes way beyond mere agricultural fertility. It's foundational, structural wealth. The commentary notes that the geology itself was a treasure trove.
Like the rocks themselves.
Yeah, they would find iron in the stones and be able to mine copper out of the mountains. This represents an environment of absolute zero scarcity. They are being handed the raw materials to construct an empire.
Going from a barren wasteland to an industrial and agricultural paradise is the ultimate upward mobility. But here's where it gets really interesting.
Oh, definitely.
The text frames this transition into paradise as a severe warning. And I think that fundamentally challenges our cultural definition of a test.
What do you mean?
Well, if you ask a random person today to describe a test of character, they will point to adversity, a sudden job loss, a devastating medical diagnosis, a financial collapse.
Right. We instinctively associate tests with pain and deprivation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So how on earth is moving into a valley full of endless bread, honey, and copper a test for you or me?
That is the core psychological pivot of the entire chapter. The NWA study notes bring this into sharp focus. The deprivation of the desert was actually just the preparation. The real, significantly more dangerous test happens in the good land.
Wow. So the mechanism of success is the actual threat.
Yes. The NWA notes observe that the natural climax of receiving a gift is complete satisfaction. When you have eaten and are full, the proper response is to bless the source of that provision.
But that exact state of satisfaction carries a massive hidden psychological risk, doesn't it?
Huge risk. Abundance is a far sneakier, far more lethal test than poverty could ever be because it neutralizes the environmental triggers that remind you of your vulnerability.
I see what you mean. When you're starving in a desert, your dependence is biologically obvious.
Your stomach is literally growling.
Yeah, it's sending pain signals to your brain that scream, you need outside intervention to survive. But when you are comfortably full, sitting in a beautiful house that you designed, the physical reminders of your inherent fragility are entirely removed.
The environment no longer forces you to look up, and this introduces the specific psychological trap outlined in the text.
The deadly combination of a full stomach and what Chapter 8 terms an elevated heart.
An elevated heart. Arrogance masquerading as self-actualization.
The text is incredibly surgical about how this creeps into the human mind. It lays out a chilling progression, like when the people build their fine houses and settle into them.
When their herds of cattle and sheep multiply.
Yes. When their silver and their gold increase. The text warns they will inevitably be tempted to say in their hearts, "My power and the strength of my hand have produced this wealth for me."
It isolates the exact moment the ego shifts from gratitude to taking the credit.
And let's look at the mechanism behind that shift. When you are gathering manna, you are passively receiving.
Right, you just pick it up.
But when you are building a house, planting a vineyard, or mining copper out of a mountain, you are physically asserting your will on the environment. You are sweating. You are using tools.
Your brain gets a massive dopamine hit of achievement.
Exactly. The physical evidence of your own intense labor effectively drowns out the invisible reality of the grace that gave you the strength to swing the pickaxe in the first place.
That is a phenomenal way to articulate it. The physical exertion required to manage abundance tricks the brain into assuming ultimate ownership of the outcome.
And we see this exact same delusion in modern hustle culture. It is so easy for any of us to look at a thriving investment portfolio or a major career promotion or successful business we launched and genuinely think, I studied late into the night for this.
I put in the grueling 80-hour work weeks.
Right. I sacrificed my weekends. I earned this entirely on my own merit. We literally echo that ancient phrase, "My power and the strength of my hand produced this," without recognizing the sheer arrogance of the claim.
We are identical to the people in the text, and the Holman Notes deliver a powerful corrective to that exact mindset.
What do they say?
The commentary emphasizes a profound theological reality. No matter how talented, intelligent, or ruthlessly diligent someone is, their success ultimately proceeds solely from a higher gracious hand.
So it's not denying that talent exists or that hard work is required?
No, not at all.
It's pointing out that your very capacity to work hard, your cognitive ability to learn a skill, and the stable environment that allows your work to yield a profitable result, all of those foundational elements are a gift. You didn't create the copper in the mountain, you just figured out how to extract it.
Exactly. The wealth they are experiencing in this good land isn't a meritocratic reward for finally figuring out advanced agricultural techniques.
Okay.
The Holman text clarifies that this wealth is God actively confirming the covenant promises he made to their ancestors. The wealth itself is the mechanism of the test.
It forces the question, will you recognize the ultimate source of your prosperity, or will you worship the gift and fall in love with your own reflection?
Precisely. And if they fail that test of prosperity, the text says they will forget the Lord their God.
But we have to be really precise about what that means. The Holman Study Bible offers a fascinating redefinition of the word forgetting in this specific biblical context.
This is a crucial distinction. The Holman Notes clarify that forgetting God here is not a cognitive failure.
Right, we aren't talking about ancient spiritual dementia where the Israelites literally lose the factual memories of the Red Sea or the manna.
Exactly. It's not spiritual dementia. It's functional atheism born of comfort.
That is a heavy phrase. Functional atheism.
It really is. You aren't simply misplacing your memory of God. You're actively choosing to write him out of your autobiography.
That maxim perfectly captures it. It is a behavioral choice, not a lapse in memory. To forget, in Deuteronomy, means to act as if God does not exist or has no claim on your life.
Yes, you might intellectually acknowledge that he helped you in the past.
But your daily operational reality, your financial decisions, your overwhelming pride, they all scream that you are the sovereign master of your own universe. You possess the historical data of the manna, but you are living with the unrestrained ego of a copper magnate.
And the text treats this behavioral forgetting, this functional atheism, with absolute severity.
Which brings us to the ultimate consequences of the psychological trap. So what does this all mean? The warning is stark and doesn't pull any punches.
It really doesn't.
If they allow this utopian abundance to elevate their hearts, if they forget their dependence and chase other gods, whether those are literal carved idols or simply the modern idol of self-sufficiency, they will absolutely perish. The text declares they will suffer the exact same fate as the nations that were destroyed to give them the land in the first place.
The sudden reversal of fortunes.
But let's analyze the mechanics of that threat. Because when we hear the phrase, "you shall surely perish," it sounds like a zero-tolerance policy, resulting in total annihilation.
Yeah, like completely wiping them off the map.
Right. If they fail, is the entire nation just wiped out permanently? Are they completely erased from history?
That is the most natural reading of the English word perish. But the Holman Notes inject some vital, historical, and theological nuance that completely changes the picture.
Oh, okay. What's the nuance?
The threat of perishing does not mean the complete biological extermination of the people.
But wait, if God is perfectly just and they commit the same sins of arrogance and idolatry as the previous occupants of the land, shouldn't absolute justice demand the exact same total destruction?
You would think so, logically.
If they aren't wiped out, the threat of perishing almost sounds like a parent making a bluff they don't intend to follow through on.
It's not a bluff, it's a redefinition of what perishing means for a covenant people. The reason God does not absolutely annihilate them is because of his own character. He is permanently bound by the covenant promises he made to their patriarchal ancestors.
Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
Exactly. He guaranteed them a continuous lineage. Therefore, he cannot biologically exterminate the nation without breaking his own word, which is a theological impossibility in this text.
Okay, I see. It's like a trust fund with a strict, severe behavioral clause.
That is a great way to look at it.
The trustee might freeze your daily allowance, repossess your house, and force you into bankruptcy to teach you a brutal, necessary lesson about your arrogance. But they won't legally dissolve the foundational trust itself because it was irrevocably guaranteed to your grandfather.
That analogy operates perfectly here. According to the Holman analysis, perishing in this context meant the catastrophic loss of their national privilege, their wealth, and their security.
So what does that look like practically?
Specifically, it meant violent exile from that physical land of abundance. They would be forcibly removed from the paradise they arrogantly believed they built themselves. Furthermore, it meant the eventual cessation of their royal government, specifically the dynasty of King David.
So the grand institutions are dismantled, the military is defeated, the copper mines are lost, and the people are driven out. But the biological and spiritual lineage is not entirely erased.
Correct. The Holman notes emphasize that a faithful remnant always survives. This is how God balances his absolute, unflinching justice against their arrogance with his eternal, unbreakable promises to their ancestors.
That is fascinating.
The false security of their self-made wealth is utterly shattered to cure their elevated hearts, but the foundational promise ensures there is always a seed left to start over. It is a devastating generational trauma, but it is not the end of their story.
It's the ultimate terrifying reset button.
Exactly.
When the elevated heart reaches a critical mass of pride, the structural foundation of their wealth is pulled out from under them to force them back into the posture of the desert classroom. They have to relearn how to look up.
And that reveals a deeply ingrained cycle in human history rooted right in our psychology. Scarcity breeds painful dependence. That dependence eventually leads to abundance.
And then abundance subtly breeds pride and an elevated heart.
Right. Pride leads to systemic destruction, and that destruction drops us right back into scarcity and dependence. Chapter 8 is desperately trying to short-circuit that toxic cycle.
It is pleading with the reader, you do not have to lose absolutely everything to remember where your strength actually comes from.
What a brilliant distillation of the entire text.
Let's briefly trace the arc of what we've uncovered today. We started in the forced existential dependence of the desert boot camp, discovering that extreme deprivation isn't just a punishment, but a paternal mechanism to teach us that our survival relies on a daily, mysterious grace, the manna.
Yeah, we then cross the border into a utopian landscape of iron, copper, and honey, only to realize that extreme comfort neutralizes our awareness of vulnerability.
We examine the dopamine trap of hard work, how physically building our own empires tempts us to claim ultimate sovereignty over our success. We learn that forgetting isn't a slip of the mind.
No, it's a deliberate behavioral choice to live as a functional atheist.
And finally, we saw how that arrogance triggers a catastrophic reset, stripping away the abundance to save the remnant. It completely dismantles our cultural obsession with being self-made.
It really does.
And that brings me to a final provocative thought I want to leave you with to mull over this week. We expend massive amounts of our time, our energy, and our prayers desperately trying to escape the difficult, dry, desert seasons of our lives. We constantly pray for the struggle to be over and for the big breakthrough to happen.
We all do it.
But based on the psychological reality of Deuteronomy 8, what if the wealth, the career success, or the absolute abundance that you are striving for right now actually requires far more internal discipline to survive than the struggles you are currently facing? When you finally get the paradise you've been working for, how will you fight off the amnesia?
That's the real test.
How will you keep your manna mindset when your plate is finally full? It is a difficult question, but confronting it might be the only way to survive your own success. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. Goodbye, and God blesses all the listeners.